Hello and welcome to the July 2019 garden tour. I live just outside of Toronto in a zone 6A garden in the US. That would be considered a zone 5 garden. I buy all my plants here for zone 5 and anything else comes inside. So I want to walk you through the garden, show you some of the succulent arrangements that I've worked on, as well as some of the maintenance I'm just about to do. So my son is getting married in 6 weeks and we're hosting the rehearsal party here. So there's some maintenance I need to do before the wedding, and knowing that I have 6 weeks worth of growth to consider as I look at all the plants. So first let's look at some of the succulent arrangements. These two succulent arrangements I just did, and this one here is actually going to be used at the wedding, and I have a separate video I'm working on to show you how I create these. This particular one will be used at the, I believe, the gift table. So I've tried to make it nice and low so that if people come with boxes or bigger gifts, that nothing sort of gets knocked off. Let's see just how lovely that is, and the colors, and I tried to work on texture. They happen to love Japan, so I created sort of a Zen kind of looking approach with some mountains, which if you've never been to Japan, it's filled with these beautiful high mountains. And this one over here, I'm calling this one Ode to BC, and again it also has some mountains in the back, as well as in Canada here there are some huge trees out in BC. So I've tried to create sort of the essence of a forest, but also all the beautiful flora and fauna that you see all throughout BC. I have this beautiful head as well that my son gave me years ago, and I kind of like how it's positioned with the succulent arrangements. They are a combination of succulents and hens and chicks, and I'll have to decide at the summer's end whether I will put them together as a completed piece into my dad's greenhouse, or whether I'll just take out the succulents and overwinter them. Here's how the garden's looking. All of the Vista series petunias have done spectacularly well. You could see that they're starting to cascade down the sides of these plants. The thing that's happening is, if I just push the camera over to here, you can see that there's starting to be some like spots at the top that aren't as filled. So what I will do is I will remove no more than a third of this plant. And I know it looks beautiful, and it's sort of like at a peak where you would say, that's just so beautiful, why would you cut it? Because I know in 6 weeks it will be that big, if not bigger. And I'm just about to do the first round of fertilization on all of these pots. So these pots have had a slow release fertilizer, and I can see right now they do need some additional support. And I love doing it that way because I don't really enjoy fertilizing with the water-based stuff. It's just messy and it takes time. So slow release is perfect until about mid-July. So what I'll do is I'll cut them back a third, and then I will give them a nice rich bath of fertilization, and then they will they'll bounce back really, really nicely. I'll probably do the same thing for these ones up here. I'll cut back the flowers, little prune them a little heavy, but by the wedding they will be absolutely spectacular. So let me just walk you over here. You can see this one also getting just a little bit lighter at the top, and it will just look so much better. The mandevilla that is in the center of these has started to grow up, the obelisks, and it will start to hide all of the wires from my lights, and at night that will just be beautiful for the wedding or the rehearsal party. You can see over here in this corner, these are all hens and chicks and sedums, and so they have all filled in beautifully. Again, this is all of the pieces that I store directly in my garage over the winter. Let me just focus on how big they're getting. And this one has this beautiful growth that's coming out. It's really lovely. My basil is doing amazing, And I have 3 different types of basil in here, and the lighting conditions are making it just a little hard for me to show you all of it. But what I do is I don't when I water it, I don't actually get the water on the plants. I have sort of a little hole back here, right in there, where I put my hose, and I fill the whole thing up with water and I let it drain out, and that way I don't get any dampness on the plant, and it just seems to really like that particular way that I'm watering it. This is 3 different types of sage, and I really like the way that it's all come together. I don't know if I ever show you this in some of my videos, but I do have a little shelf here. I typically have a piece that's sitting on another table that's hiding that vent to my stove, so I've got to put that back because it just makes it look a lot nicer. And I have all sorts of little watering cans. I've had other things up there over the years, but the squirrels can crawl up the wall and they knock the stuff down, so now it can only be things that if it falls, they won't be damaged. So as I walk back over here and I show you the deck from this angle, you can see that that's so much growth on these plants. And over here, the water fountain, which is normally on, I don't have it on today, but it's normally on. These side containers are just doing amazing. So a lesson learned for next year will be to only use the 1 Vista bubblegum, because that's all that's in there is just 1, and the baby tut grass. I do have some geraniums in there, but that was just a waste of money. You only need the 2 plants because this is July and they're only both going to get much bigger, and they are a good combination because they sort of fight each other for the water and space, and I really like the way it's cascading. Now, if I did nothing to these plants today, by the time the wedding comes, they'd be all down here in the bottom and there'd be nothing sort of filling the top, so I'm going to be giving them a nice little haircut too. Over here at the herb tower, you can see that I've actually removed all of the lettuces in this area. I do have some new succulent arrangements that I've made, and I'm impressed with how much they've grown just in the last couple of days. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what those might look like by the time we do the rehearsal party. So I'm trying an experiment on this. These are the actual bases from the lettuces that were there. I'm going to see if they will grow. Some lettuces will grow once you cut them back like that. If they don't, it's no loss, but I thought I would give it an experiment. At the same time, I've also put some seeds in here for a lettuce called Jester lettuce that is green with little burgundy speckles, and apparently it does not bolt, so we're going to see what happens, and hopefully that will fill in time. If not, I will go and look for some more herbs to fill in the space. Everything is growing just spectacularly. Down at the bottom, all the nasturtiums are abundant and providing us so many flowers. Now I'm just going to move the camera and I'm going to just show you what the yard is looking at like from this angle here, because this really is one of the most spectacular views of the garden. I really do love how everything has come together, and you can see that the feature pot there in the far distance, the Supertunias are just spilling over the side. It breaks my heart, but I'm going to have to do a little haircut on them as well, just so that they look great by the time the wedding comes. So I'm just going to walk forward a little bit to show you how lovely all of those incredible hydrangeas have come in. I'm so surprised that it's so early in the year. I thought they would be more an August feature, so I'm a little bit worried about what they're going to look like come August, at the end of August or September. So I'm hoping that their abundance continues and maybe they change color a little bit. This is the first year that they've had a full year of growing. Last year was the time that we planted them, and it was more towards the end of the season. The first flowers that were on them when I purchased them died back within a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping that that's not a feature of this, so that you have this dead looking plant. I'm hoping that that was just more a shock of planting and that they are abundant. And you could see here that the pots, they are looking like they need just a little bit of support. So that fertilization that I'm about to do is going to give them a really nice little bit of life. But this is what I mean about the Supertunias, about why you're going to actually cut them back. And you can see this has become sort of a long tailish piece of plant that's only got 2 flowers on it. If I cut it back to about right here, it's actually going to create multiple pieces out of that, and it will just look so much better. Again, I'm also very surprised at the little tiny Johnny jump ups, the violas, that are still producing, because they typically should be looking lanky and not attractive by now. So whatever variety that all of these pansies and Johnny jump ups, violas are, they're doing amazing. Like, this is sort of the best I've seen of this beautiful yellow lemon colored pansy all year. The Gara that I have as a sort of a thriller in this pot has become very long and leggy. Again, it's almost at the end of its cycle for these plants. There's still a fair number of blooms that will come out of these, but in the plant there are also some shorter ones, and I want the shorter ones over here to be the dominant pieces in the next couple weeks. So I'll also be doing a little trim back on these longer ones so that the plant knows to create some shorter ones, and that by in the next couple weeks it's gonna look amazing. So here we are, a couple steps down. You can see that that daisy is just so spectacular on that pink table. And thank you so much for all of your comments of either loving or hating the pink table. I didn't realize it would be such a point of discussion for many of you. It is one of those things, it's just spray paint. If 5 years down the road I decide I don't want pink and I want to paint it black or white or purple or yellow, I can do that. And that's the cool thing about this little set. I love the pink. I think it provides a lot of variety and interest in this garden, especially in our long, cold winters. Seeing that little bit of bright pink out here has been fun. What I will say is I switched the vendors or the supplier of my paints, because I couldn't find the color that I was using before, which was called watermelon. This is pink. And I find this one just a little bit brighter than the watermelon color I had previously. It was down a tone. I did prefer the other color just a wee bit because it was just not as in your face. So I do appreciate some of you that are just saying it's a little bit too bright. I hear ya. It's good enough for now, and I like the contrast that it provides in the garden. But it's always so interesting to hear so many of your different opinions. So I'm just going to turn over here so you can see how the garden is coming together from this angle. It does look so pretty, and look at those beautiful Incredible hydrangeas. That's the variety, it's called Incredible. So moving through the garden, you can see we have lots of new growth on the umbrella pine, which is pretty cool. This is the first time I've actually seen it come out of its growing environment. I do like the way that all of the trees have come together. And if I can just show you over here what these big plants are, these are milkweed. So I'm just trying to give a little home for all of the monarch butterflies. They can be very aggressive. So I'm just gonna have one little nursery where they grow, and then I will get rid of the rest of them in the garden. But I do like them kind of sitting there. They're a lot taller than I anticipated, but I do like them right there. So again, just sort of giving you another view of the garden. I'm just gonna swing it around so you can see what it looks like from this angle. And look at those hydrangeas. Now, this plant over here has done really well, but this one here is kind of partially being crowded by the hostas over there. I'm probably by next year will go in and give that more space with the hostas. This year I'm not going to worry about it because anything I do right now will not bounce back from a perennial perspective in those 6 weeks. So I can deal with the annuals and make them look good, but those will have to stay as they are. So swinging around this side, you can see well, it's rather hard to see. Maybe I'll give you a different perspective in a moment or two. But these really beautiful Spanish lavender over here, I am also going to give them a little bit clipping so that the standard components of them show up a little bit better. And I'll also give a little bit of a haircut to all of the Supertunias underneath them, and they will also get some fertilizer. And here is a close-up of the feature pot. Look at all the hostas underneath. They also have purple flowers. Show you those a little closer. It's very, very pretty. That was an unexpected, beautiful consequence that I had anticipated of the purple flowers with the purple Vista Bordeaux. I do really like it. And also this little guy here, I never weeded him out, that lamb's ear, and he does look kind of pretty there, just as a sort of a random accent to the overall look. You can see that the mandevilla here has also started to grow, and it too will fill up this entire obelisk, which I need to bring some electricity over to it, and it will also shine up for the wedding. All of the hostas are starting to bloom. Each bloom is just a little bit different on each of the plants. Some people hate hosta blooms. I particularly find them beautiful. Let me show you one over here. You can see that there's a Japanese maple tucked away in there. I'm just going to move the camera so you can see the garden one more time before I move into the rest of it. But I just wanted to show you how pretty all of these hosta blooms are over here. I love the way that they jump up here, but look at this little vista right here with my little metal bird and those nice 3 blooms. It's just very, very peaceful to look at. So we'll just walk over here and I'll show you what I mean when it comes to these Spanish lavender. So down at the bottom, you can see that these pieces here, they're kind of pushing their way into the Vista Bordeaux and Vista Mini Silver. And what's happening is they wrap themselves around here. And I think that it's actually not doing the plant any benefit. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut these guys nice and tight so you can see a bit of the wood. It'll give these guys a little bit more room to grow, and I think it'll just look a lot better. I trimmed a lot of the little buds off of here. You can see there's still a couple of new ones, but again, I'm also going to give this a little haircut. I don't anticipate that I will have any more blooms out of them. So a nice little haircut will just do them really, really well. Look at how pretty this whole scene looks as you back away. One of the things that is interesting in this garden is how quickly the weeds grow. And I know a lot of you ask me, like, do I spend a lot of time out here? I only have about 4 to 5 days of time that I can invest in this garden, and I usually spend about an hour a day, if that. So the garden gets maybe 3 to 4 hours worth of care, and I'd have to say a lot of that is just watering. So when I come in to weed, because I'm a bit of a lazy gardener, I wait for my weeds to get a little bit big, and it makes me feel so good when I come out and weed really big things, because it really does make a difference. So you can see this garden needs some major weeding. This will probably take me an hour, but I'll get it all done. But look how pretty all of these tiger lilies are. I love the contrast of that orange in amongst the purple sand cherry. And to give you an idea of just how big my weeds get, these greens, that's weed, 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 weed. And this garden, as you recall, we only did less than 6 weeks ago we planted that garden, so the weeds get really big here. And this Rosa rugosa has just about finished, but I think he's going to push out some new flowers as well. And look at the size of these weeds. I mean, it's huge. And yes, I do come out here and weed. I'm not that lazy. But if you're not on top of one that just sort of hides there, all it takes is a nice warm day and they can grow a foot. Here's the other two arrangements of the Supertunias that are looking pretty spectacular. Again, I'm going to give these guys a haircut and a fair bit of fertilizer. This particular one had a lot of branches that were overreaching, and you can see that it's not that full on that side. So I will make sure that I do some pruning to have it fill out nicely, but you can also see that things are trying to stretch out more into the sun. There is the mandevilla growing nice and large in here, and I'll show you back here. This is all pots, and it's so pretty with the actual blooms coming out of the hostas there, and these pretty little tiger lilies that I left in the pots. They've got blooms. I'm very, very happy about that. Fern's doing amazing back in that corner. And this garden here with the new hostas, I really love that chartreuse color. It just makes it so lovely. Let's listen to the birds. And just reaching up to find the sun. We have that tiger lily right there. Here's another little pretty arrangement. You can see it that well. There's a couple of different colors, and these are all just little cell plants that I bought, with the exception of the hosta, which is one of the ones from the garden that I divided. But it does have a very pretty little purple flower on it. So it's just some coleus, and as well as some little cell plant begonias. This one will get a haircut, and if you were to look at the two of them, you'll be able to see that this one, because it gets far more sun, it gets the morning sun, the afternoon sun, is much more vibrant than that one. So I'll have to be very careful about how I trim them so that they sort of balance out a little bit more. This little bird bath sees so much action. I need to change the water. And here's the same arrangement here. And this gets the morning sun. Again, doing quite lovely. Here's another little succulent arrangement, or hens and chicks arrangement that I did. Oh, let me just show you this. I don't know if you can see it based on the light. Let me see if I can. We have apples, my friends. Apples upon apples upon apples. And they are very abundant this year. We don't spray, so we do get bugs in the apples, so we haven't figured out how to manage that part. So if anyone has any ideas or a couple of links on apple tree care, we would love to hear from you. Here's all the hostas. Very, very pleased to see impatiens back in our area. I'm only keeping them in pots for now. There was a virus that killed all the ones that were in the ground, and so we did not have them for about 7 years. So they've just started to reintroduce them, and I have seen great success with them in my pots with fresh soil. Here's another little arrangement. And here we go. The tricolored beech is doing amazing. And right behind this beautiful piece of driftwood, you can see that I actually have some blooms on this hydrangea. I believe this is called summer. It came out a couple of years ago. I bought like 7 of them. This is the only one that has lived. Just didn't like my yard. What can I say? Having better luck with other varieties. And next month, you'll probably be able to see all of this all in bloom. This is Rudbeckia, or Black-Eyed Susan. It's done really well. Normally by this year, it's about half that size, and often looking weary from not enough water. So it's really been a great year for the garden. So great that I walked by these two black pots here and they were filled with water. So I had to come with a power drill and drill a little hole on the side here, on 4 of the sides, just to let the water out. And you can see it's still dripping out. It's incredible how much water has been in this. And what I had to do was I had to come up to the begonias that are here. I had to remove all of the flowers so that they would set out new leaves and get a little stronger. Really did weaken them. I also removed a ton of lilies of the valley that were all along here and choking all of my hostas. They're so happy that I did that. As I come over to this area, my dill is growing, as is my chocolate mint that was overwintered from last year. These pretty little arrangements are doing very well. It's a working garden. You'll always find parts of my yard that are unfinished. The lavender is coming in nicely, still waiting to be put into the garden. May never get there, or at least not until the end of the season. I do have some cute little radishes. Once I thinned them, they actually started to grow. Have lots of tomatoes growing. Still lots of stuff left in the nursery. Oh, this little piece right in the back here that almost looks like a little backdrop, that's the piece that goes over my stove output. So I'll be moving that. And I have a very big bean plant. It's got lots of flowers on it, but I'm not seeing any beans yet. So I'm hopeful that that will happen soon. It does look like my peas are finished. So I may move one of my tomato plants back into that corner just so that there's a little bit more space. I don't know if I show you this very often, but this is a fountain that I spray painted. It was starting to fall apart and I gave it 2 colors, a blue and a copper, so it would look like it's been aged. And the idea was to actually put some sort of succulents in there. We'll get to that project, not to worry. In the front here, we have this very pretty arrangement here in the corner. It's got a little bit of the columbine that's still there, just about finished. So these will be getting a little haircut in the next week once I let the seeds develop, because it does, I'll be quite frank, it does look very messy, and I often just take my lawnmower and mow that whole space clean. It's much easier than trying to weed it. You can see here that the Tough Stuff Mountain Hydrangea has now started to put on its color. When I bought this, I actually thought these were the bloom heads, but they don't bloom that way. It blooms with these little side flowers. It still looks beautiful to me. And it's just something to realize when you're buying things, to really do a little bit more research, but it does love that spot, and it is 3 times bigger than it has been in previous years. These pink flowers that you're seeing there, that's mallow, I believe, that I planted in the yard about 20 years ago, and I am forever trying to get rid of the seeds. So let me walk you. I'm going to walk through this dense area. Really don't like it when you walk through an area and you get wet or scratched. So it needs a little bit of work. I realize that, my friends. Let me show you some of the other succulent arrangements. But first, the clematis has been beautiful. This is now, I would say we have maybe 1/4 of the flowers left on it. Still looking so lovely. They've just been falling down to the ground. And I created this beautiful arrangement the other day. The 3 pink rocks in the back, some white rocks in the front, and you can see all the pretty little clematis flowers have fallen into it. Just really quite pretty. And then we have all of the driftwood. In this particular piece right here of driftwood, I also created just a cute little garden. Maybe needs a little bit of color, but maybe I'll just leave it the same way that it is. It's kind of pretty. And then up on the stairs here, I have all sorts of other pretty little succulent arrangements that I've created. so that when people come to my house, they're greeted with all of this pretty little display. I just shoved the little pine cones in the hole in that. You can see this baby here. I really don't think it's doing as well as I would like it to be. I find that the blooms on this are spectacular, but it's also not as full as I would like it to be when people arrive. So I know that for sure that this plant needs some fertilizer to just sort of fill in. Fuchsia really do need fertilizer, and I know that that will make a big difference to how this pot looks, as will the impatiens in the back corner there. So if I back away and I show you, or actually I'll just walk up the stairs here. Look how beautiful these guys are. What a beautiful color combo. The overall plant is looking good. The Thumbergina, which is Black-Eyed Susan vine, has really started to move throughout the plant and down, and sometimes this whole arrangement gets covered. And down here we have one more arrangement that you can see. It too is looking like it just needs a little bit of love. There's some new growth that's about to come out of that fuchsia. So I think once I fertilize these guys and maybe even trim back some of those plants, it will start to look better. But I really do like the way that as you're coming up the walk, you're greeted with all of these very interesting little displays of plants. I mean, look at this. It is really quite lovely. It's sort of hidden from the road, so you wouldn't see it until you're out here. Let me just bring you around the other side of the house. Here's that garden. If you remember in last month's, it was filled with peonies. It's now got all the tiger lilies that are just filling this garden. Oh, I'm just gonna walk you over. There is one little garden I wanted to show you. This garden here is out on the boulevard, and I actually have a one of those old wine barrels that's underneath this vine. This vine here can be quite invasive, so it's in a happy spot. It's filled out quite nicely. I've put a couple of lilies out here, and I used to try to garden more down here on the boulevard, but it just seemed that everybody's dog wanted to pee in the area, and that's really unpleasant. But underneath my magnolia, you can see that there is all sorts of lilies that are in bloom. And let's just see, about a week ago I discovered that there were a couple of alliums that were in bloom as well. This is a challenge trying to capture the garden for you guys. Things come in and out of bloom very quickly, but I wanted to capture the garden right now so that you could see all of the tiger lilies, because these are actually daylilies, and they'll be done within another week or so. But it is a really beautiful week here in the garden. This is a beautiful plant. This is burning bush. Here's a bunch of daisies. And right behind it was where the peonies were, and also behind it is this beautiful rose bush that is, it's a producer. It just gets trimmed once a year. I don't fertilize it, I don't do anything special to it, and it just blooms for me. So here's those pretty daisies. They won't be in bloom for the wedding. The whole front yard will be actually not overly stellar at all. Don't know what to do about that. Anyone have any suggestions? Even in this area right here, as guests come into the house, it will look kind of boring, but I do have all of those plants, as I showed you, that will look great. Let me walk you along the side here. The burning bush, not the burning bush, sorry, the smoke bush. Gosh, I've got a burning bush and a smoke bush. It's the first time I've actually realized that. It's kind of funny. Has really bounced back from the cutting that we did. It's probably grown about 3 feet in the last 4 weeks. So sorry for the spin here. I have a lot of weeding to do. It seems like I weed and then I weed and then I weed again. So as we come around the corner here, you can see I've got a little garden set up here. This side entrance is where I like to have a coffee some days if it's been raining outside, because it's nice and protected. Again, same similar arrangement we saw on the other side of the house, the Thumbergina with impatiens, as well as a cascading creeping Jenny. You can see something's been eating the creeping Jenny, but creeping Jenny is strong and it's putting out new growth. Up here, I did a whole bunch of more succulent arrangements, and they meet you as you go up. That's a big helicopter going over the house, very big one. They meet you as you go up the stairs. There's a little bit of repetition, and then there's this one that I did from all the plants I bought when I was out in BC. So it's just a fun little spot. And up here, I don't show this very often, nothing grows very well here. It just dries out and it's very hard to grow things. I have dollar store cheap plants sitting in there. I'll probably switch that out for something a little more attractive later on, but hey, I had them, I put them there, and they just stick around. This is an arrangement that I had in the house, the aloe and that other succulent, and it's a nice shaded spot, and I'm just trying to acclimatize them to more sun. They were getting white and stretching too much, so in the last week that they've been out here, they've been coloring up and liking this spot. All of my little babies here have new growth, and these are going to be used in a wedding, at my son's wedding, as table arrangements. So let me just finish walking you back to the front yard. I'm just going to show you, or sorry, we're going to the backyard. Again, things have really grown in. I'm going to show you some epic weeds. This particular beautiful plant, and I thought this was just stunning, and I went and I looked it up and tried to ID it. It's called Creeping Bellflower, and you can see how pretty those flowers are. I mean, it's just lovely. But one of the features of it is it's a very invasive flower. So I will be pulling it out after this video. And this, I have no idea what it is, but it's now about 7 feet tall, and it too will be leaving my garden because, as you can see, it's all crowding in this corner. This is also a weed. It's a mallow. I keep cutting it back and it keeps growing back. You don't want mallow, not in my garden. So I'm going to get very, I guess, a lot more aggressive with the things that are growing in the garden that I did not plant, so that whatever I want to show up properly shows up. Again, guys, I'm still disappointed with this dogwood. I can see that it has the brackets that are supposed to be as little flowers, and they're not going white. So it's not looking like it's blooming, and so I'll have to go back to the nursery to see if there's something I need to do differently. You can also see that I have something that's eating the leaves of my lavender twist red bud, so I will have to also research that. What takes such giant bites out of a plant? My goodness. So thanks very much for coming by. Really appreciate all of you stopping by, seeing the garden, seeing the progress. I will, as I mentioned, be doing a clipping and some yard maintenance, so I wanted to make sure that I captured the garden for you. It's always a little hard for me after I do the haircut to see what the yard looks like, because it does look a little like, ooh, maybe we just cut a little too close to the wood, as they say. So I only take a third back. It'll still look good, and I know that the plants will love that and will look much better. In as little as, I would say, even 3 weeks, you'll see a big difference. So I know that by the time the wedding comes, they'll almost need another haircut, and I'm totally cool with that. So appreciate all of your kind comments, as well as your comments of things that you don't particularly like about the garden, because that also gives me a moment to reflect and appreciate other people's perspectives. So thanks very much for dropping by. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see the garden and how it changes month over month, subscribe to the channel. And as I've mentioned before, I will be adding more videos. I'm working on another one that is just all focused on the succulent arrangements so that you can learn a little bit about my thought process and how they come to be. Thanks again, guys. So appreciate all of you. Take care now.